Welcome to this edition of the Web Weekly Highlights. My name's Dan Wallin, and I'm excited to walk you through a lot of great content that we have, ranging from JavaScript technologies. We have some libraries we're going to talk about that'll save you a ton of time. We're going to also talk about some CSS3 concepts, even touch on icons, AngularJS, and more. So let's go ahead and jump right in. If you work a lot with CSS, then you've undoubtedly played a little bit with CSS3, I suspect. The good news is a lot of the modern browsers have some of the key features that we like to use. So for instance, we have things like the rocket going around the Earth. Everybody wants that in their app, I know. Well, a great article on 12 awesome CSS features that you can now start to use for real in the modern browsers that are out there has been written by Martin Angelov. And he talks about everything from animations and transforms to more simple things like gradients, which are very cool though, repeating backgrounds, and much, much more. So this is definitely a great article if you want to learn about the key CSS3 features that are now to the point that they actually work pretty well across all the major browsers out there. Another nice article in this issue of the Web Weekly newsletter is by Andy Appleton, and he provides a really interesting look at Ember and how you can get started using it. Now, I found this article specifically, to me anyway, useful because I'm kind of an AngularJS guy, and it turns out Andy is as well, but he decided to give Ember a spin as well, and he gives a really kind of, I think, unbiased opinion of what he thought between the two, and talks about how you can do models in Ember, how you can work with your data, do caching, and a whole bunch of other things. And he kind of walks through the process of building a little app here, and discusses it and contrasts and compares it to some things he's done in Angular. So very good job by Andy, and highly recommend you take a look at that if you want to get a good feel for what Ember does and what AngularJS does. Now, everybody who's a web developer, especially if you're not really artistically inclined, or we might say in my case, kind of artistically challenged, we all want to find a good set of icons we can use. And a really nice one that's in this issue that I came across is Ionicons, or it could be Ion Icons. I'm not sure which it is. I like Ionicons personally. But they provide an MIT license, so it's free, it's open source, you can do whatever you want with a set of icons that are really robust and super nice. They have all kinds of different shapes and symbols and things you can do with it. So if you're looking for different icons, whether it's toolbars or menus or just act as headers or placeholders in your document, then check this out. You can go to ionicons.com. If you work a lot with JavaScript, then you'll know that promises are a very, very standard thing, whether it's on the server side with Node.js or if you're doing something as simple as a jQuery callback for Ajax. Well, promises are something that you really can't get rid of, and they're a really key part, I would argue, of our web development experience. But if you've struggled with what they are, Vitario Zachariah has a really nice article called A Dumb Easy Model for Promises. And what I really like about it is it's very visual. So he breaks it down into some nice little images or graphs of how a promise works. Here's our different callbacks. Here's how it works if there's an error. And then he breaks that down even further on how the promise moves along once it's resolved. And at the end of this, there's a PDF you can get to, which I'll go to right here. And this PDF actually breaks down all the images into one area that you can look at. And if you're struggling a little bit with promises, I think it's a great way to visually see how they actually work, what a deferred is, how it gets resolved or rejected, and all those types of things. So excellent work by Vitario, and definitely recommend checking this out if you're new to promises. Do you work with maps at all? If you do, then you'll know that whether it's Google Maps or Bing or ESRI, there's different APIs involved, and there's a different learning curve involved. Now, one thing with maps that I always find on websites is that you're kind of locked into one map or the other, and nothing wrong with that per se, but what if you could offer your users the opportunity to switch between them? I think that's kind of especially important when you do, for instance, satellite views and things where there's just different imagery involved across the different mapping APIs. Well, I came across this project, which is open source, called Mapstraction. Now, Mapstraction is available on GitHub, and what they did is provided a higher level API that you can learn kind of one way to do things, and they'll abstract away the underlying APIs of Google and Bing and ESRI and the others. So there's an example they kind of show here of what the different maps look like, and you can even dynamically switch the maps out if you'd like. and they support a pretty robust set of APIs. In fact, I'll have to say some of these I've never even heard of, but things like the standard ones, Google, Bing, ESRI, MapQuest, and others are available. So definitely check that out if you're going to be doing much with mapping. Now, it's no secret that mobile is pretty much everywhere nowadays, and if you haven't heard that, then you're probably locked away somewhere, and hopefully you get out soon. But the definitive guide to Angular on mobile is a really, really nice read if you not only want to learn a little bit about AngularJS, but specifically want to learn how AngularJS can actually help you build mobile applications. Now, this isn't just one of those little mini posts. This is a very robust post from NG Newsletter. Highly recommend it, and it's probably my favorite article in this issue, to be real honest, because it goes into some really, really nice detail about how we can get Angular Touch going, what Angular Touch provides, and it also goes into Cordova or PhoneGap and talks about how you can take an Angular app and actually port that over and wrap it with PhoneGap or Cordova to get it in the iOS or the Android or whatever store you want to go to. So very excellent article if you are going to be building apps and you either want to just make them work nicely in the browser on mobile phones or tablets, or you actually want to put them in the store, but you want them to be web-based behind the scenes. So excellent article. The next item I want to highlight in this issue is a cool little project if you need to know when your users' connectivity is on or offline for your web apps. In the past, we've kind of just assumed that if it's offline, too bad, you're out of luck. Well, on a phone, it's a little more common that can happen as maybe you're switching cell towers or whatever's going on there. So this Offline.js project, what it does is provides a really easy way and a templated way to show a message to users as their application goes offline. So as an example, if we scroll down a little bit, here's some of the different methods that are available, and you can template these, and they have a whole bunch of themes and things like that. And what we can now do is show our users, hey, you're offline right now. Now, if that's all it did, okay, that would still be pretty cool if you need it. Also, what it will do, and you can turn this on or off, is track the AJAX requests. So while it was offline, if you did hit a button, or the user did, and the user then, obviously isn't going to be go to the back-end website, then what this will do is capture that request, and you can replay it once connectivity comes back online. Kind of an interesting take. Not something I'll say I've really thought about building into apps, but check it out if you need that functionality, Offline.js. The final item I want to highlight in this issue is something that I put together to help people learn AngularJS. And so I put together a little application called the Customer Manager application. Doesn't sound too exciting, but it demonstrates a lot of different features that AngularJS offers. Now, if you're brand new to AngularJS, I'd actually recommend check out my AngularJS in 60-ish minutes video. It's also on the blog, and we'll put a link up for this for you. And it'll walk you through all the fundamentals in about an hour that you need to know to get started with Angular. But if you already know a little bit of AngularJS, the goal of this application was to demonstrate different features that it offers, and that's everything from creating modules, factories and services, using third-party type of projects like Angular UI Bootstrap, and also working with things like directives, including custom directives, and much more. Now on the back end, the AngularJS application you see here actually goes through, and by default, it'll talk to Web API. And that's a framework for RESTful APIs that I really like. We also have an option to hit Node.js with Express and MongoDB. And that could also be the RESTful backend if you would like. So in this post, I walk you through all the key features. There's quite a few things it does. The project layout as far as how to organize your projects, or at least how I like to do it when it comes to AngularJS. I will admit it's very, very subjective. But we'll also go into some screenshots, back-end technologies, and different techniques that are used throughout the app for validation and other things. So if you're interested in learning Angular, this is a free project. It's up on GitHub if you'd like, so you're welcome to fork it, and then you can sit there and modify it yourself. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. I want to thank Interface Technical Training for allowing me to come into their awesome studio, and for John and Adam for hanging out with me. If you're interested in classes either here in Phoenix or you want to do them online, we do offer a very cool remote live option, and it's something that I teach, whether it's a .NET or JavaScript or HTML5 or whatever it may be. A lot of fun because you can actually see both the boards Plus there's actually video with the instructor. It's a lot more interactive than most that you will see out there. So definitely check that out, and thanks again to Interface Technical Training for sponsoring the Web Weekly. So thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Web Weekly. I hope that you saw a few highlights, a few articles, maybe some libraries that you can apply in your everyday job, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you want to keep in touch, catch me online at Dan Wallin on Twitter, and thanks again.